Training camps are getting underway in the NFL, and First Take is going camping as we dive into the biggest storylines heading into the season. Today, we're looking at the 49ers. Brandon Aiyuk has been a topic of conversation all offseason in San Francisco. The wide receiver is looking for a new contract with the team, but has yet to get a deal done, which has resulted in him missing the 49ers offseason program. Let's listen to his teammate, George Kittle.
I'm not concerned about it. Aiyuk's a phenomenal football player who's a big part of our offense. And he's like one of the most complete receivers that I've ever played with. So I'm going to assume that Aiyuk's going to be on our team by the time the season starts.
Dan Orlovsky, do you think the 49ers need Aiyuk to remain on top of the NFC?
Oh, there's no question about it. Brandon they're one of the most essential offensive pieces that they have. He's much more than a wide receiver as well. You can make the case he's the best blocking wide receiver in the NFL, and the way that San Francisco runs the football and the way that they formation stuff and the way their offense in many ways is built in yards after the catch. If you don't have a guy that selflessly does that work outside of actually catching the football, then it's really difficult to operate. Also, I don't know if there's a more confident guy going over the middle of the field and taking shots potentially than Brandon Aiyuk at wide receiver. Maybe Justin Jefferson, but Brock Purdy has a tremendous amount of trust in him. And he is a very unique skill set when it comes to how San Francisco runs their offense. So he is a much-needed piece to stay atop the NFC.
I disagree. Tyreek Hill left Kansas City. They won 2 Super Bowls. Tyreek Hill has not won a playoff game yet in Miami. Devontae Adams left Green Bay. Everybody thought the worst thing in the world. Packers won a playoff game last year, and Adams has done nothing from a standpoint of postseason with the Raiders. I like Aiyuk. He's a very good player. I got confidence in the quarterback, who Dan, by the way, 5 minutes ago wanted to put in the Hall of Fame, in Brock Purdy. And I got a lot of confidence in the head coach, who obviously is a big-time coach. And remember, the best 49ers team of all time did not have Jerry Rice on it. His receivers were Freddie Solomon, Joe Montana, 84, 15-1. His receivers were Freddie Solomon and Dwight Clark. Those are not Hall of Famers.
40 years ago, Mad Dog.
Oh, it's one of the great teams. We're going to dispute the 84 Niners. They were 15-1. Those were who their receivers were. Dwight Clark, God rest his soul, not a Hall of Famer. And obviously, Fred Solomon, another God rest his soul, not a Hall of Famer either. So receivers have a little bit of a dime or dozen routine to them. You can replace them. So I think the Niners, they need them, but I don't think the end of the world if they don't have them, myself.
Well, no, not the end of the world, but they're not. If Brandon Aiyuk was traded today, I would give you 2 or 3 teams that I would then slot above San Francisco when it comes to favorites in the NFC. I wouldn't even have them favorites in their division then if they lost Aiyuk and didn't replace him. I would probably pick the Rams over them within the division.
Wow.
I think he's that versatile of a piece for them.
Okay, well then what would be your explanation about Green Bay losing Adams? We all thought the world would end for the Packers at receivers. They made the playoffs, of course, last year, won a playoff game, and the Raiders have done nothing. And what would be your explanation of Hill, who has not won a playoff game in Miami, and the Chiefs have won 2 Super Bowls without him? What's the reasoning there?
One, they have 2 all-time greats in Kansas City at respective positions. Travis Kelce, arguably the best tight end of all time, and Patrick Mahomes, arguably the best quarterback of all time. So it softens the blow a little bit. They also had a defense last year that gave up like 14 points a game. So roster-wise was fantastic. In relation to Green Bay, don't forget, they traded Devontae Adams, and their offense fell apart the next season, and in many ways was the beginning of the end for Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay.
Well, week 17, they had a chance to make the playoffs before the loss to Detroit. And San Francisco still has McCaffrey, still has Trent Williams, still has Kittle. They still got D.B. Samuel. So it's not like there's nothing there.
Correct.
If he left. So, listen, I'm not disputing the fact that Aiyuk's a very good player. You know more of the X's and O's and the blocks.
Of course.
But I have seen too many examples where we all thought with these receivers, when they leave, these teams are never going to respond. And every time I look up, a team does very nicely when they don't pay the receiver $2 billion and they replace him, drafting, whatever the case might be.
Sure.
And they don't seem to miss a beat. That's the evidence that we've seen in the last
I know that you're not minimizing the type of player that he is. I don't want to come across in that regards. I just think there's a little nuance to this one. I think Aiyuk and the role that he plays and what he's asked to do in San Francisco is a little bit different than the role that trying to think of another like relatively high-end receiver that is asked to do, like a Nico Coleman in Houston. What he is asked to do is a little bit different than what Aiyuk is asked to do. I don't know if there's another receiver that is asked to block as much as he is?